Ladies and Germans, how are you all doing? This is ColKoenig.
This is Rangru, hello, hello, hello.
And folks, we are taking a slight break from the Steel Division League to give you some monthly tournament action. In fact, today we are on Sianno, that most, let's say, aqua of maps. Ryan, who do we have? What's going on?
On left-hand side in the blue, we have ColKoenig playing as Tartelek of a balanced income. Right-hand side in red, we have EdwinBrotch playing 9th Infantrie, also with a balanced income.
Now, out there, looking at the decks, as you might have seen me over here, folks, I was saying to Rang just before we went live on this, it's fascinating to me to see that we've really started to see a pull away from off-map artillery play. In fact, I see a lot more artillery being theoretically brought onto the map, and I find that just so much more pleasing. I know the kabooms being a big thing, but I'm sorry, you're going to make a comment already, please.
Oh no, just seeing up north here, we got like a huge, bloody rush in general. He's just going to go full tilt.
Which is kind of weird. I mean, if you look at Tartelek, of course, we know this as being fantastic infantry. But the funny thing here is that this is probably one of the few times I think that an allied let's say, major powers division actually might have the tank advantage. Wait a second. I might even... No, I'm going to stick with that. Having the 12 Stokes over here in C, having some early P4s, up against the Hungarians over here, they actually have quite the delicious kind of firepower advantage, I would argue.
Yeah, it's also quite funny. I have these two minor Axis, former Axis nation. They're going to be blowing each other up with German tanks.
But that's the nice thing, it's kind of like having a T-34 in every war from 1945 until 1990 something.
Yeah,
and of course yes, exactly. Exactly. We can make the comment about that. Yeah, most of the guns in every single thing up to and almost including Metro Last Light kind of stuff. Down south, we do actually have an anti-tank rifle that is enjoying some rather effective engagement here.
Yeah, managing to force back out half track. We have seen Edwin here actually invest in a decent amount of really more of a defensive force for the far southern flank. But I think looking at central town, not much going on because really it's crazy Tartelek breakthrough is it still has quite a lot of steam. The recruits are rather disheartened and getting completely outgunned here. So it'll be very interesting to see if ColKoenig can really follow up his momentum and get a good foothold onto the hill.
Well, and I can't help but feel like there's potential to the northern side. The southern side's a little harder to break through because you actually do have to go up that slope, which doesn't sound like it's a big thing. But you get the slowed going up the hill. There's still kind of line of sight blockers. So we see infantry being moved on in, and those guys are going to be pretty solidly placed. Now, northern side, squad coming in. We do have the anti-tank rifle right there, and he's going to start. Yep, there we go.
Oh, damn. That was a good little snipe, but, well, I guess fortunately here for Edwin, 80 rifles no longer as cheesy.
No longer as cheesy, but there's still a good chunk of dairy in there. And bring in the fact that, yes, there is a P4 being brought in. Oh, wait a second. Wait. What killed? Okay, now it's a Kubelwagen. I could have sworn there's a Stug in northern. Okay, the Stug didn't aggress. Okay.
Yep, he's just chilling because we've got the H-39s who are leading the charge here and actually doing an effective amount of fire support because there's no anti-tank on the infantry here, so it's really going to come down to this one Panzer IV, as we're seeing, really showing how good a more modern medium tank is compared to something designed in the mid-30s, well, late 30s, I guess.
I was not expecting to actually have line of sight on that, but yeah, folks, there is a little bit of elevation right there. Kind of funny thing, though, here, too, is that just because the H-39s go down does not mean the P4 is going to be able to run high heaven over here because there still are Fausts, thick and sweet between all those Loviches and the actual trees.
No, it's a really awesome position ColKoenig has here because even at close range at H-39 can actually be a bit deadly to that Panzer IV. Of course, the Panzer IV is most likely going to win that engagement. If he can still just keep the foothold of this forest, they maybe get an anti-tank gun or two up on it, and even got the fire support covering the edge of the ridgeline, which is really bloody impressive to see. He can just, keep his push going and at least capture one, maybe even two flags.
Which is good, because if you look down south, actually, we've talking about on-map artillery, then we didn't actually call any of it out. There's a 60 mil stovepipe in this Grierstummel over here, which is basically just an infantry gun mounted on the back of a half-track. But these guys are surprisingly efficient, kind of pushing through this town. It's gonna bog down, but it still was a 14-10 for a considerable amount of time.
Yeah, honestly, just continuing to do some sort of southern or town push here for Edwin would probably be his best bet, as that would relieve some pressure from the absolute pain which is going on up north here. But he's going to have to really invest quite a bit more if he wants that southern push to happen. And we're seeing a little bit of a point injection, but at the same time, of course, he is trying to cover this breakthrough which is happening up north, because ColKoenig is still full sending tanks and infantry to get up the hill.
That is accurate, and forgive me, but the Romanian infantry, I'm not trying to malign our Romanian brothers and sisters out there, but at the same time, in this particular division, I find their stand-up capabilities not quite as necessary to stop the Hungarians.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Like the Lovesses and I believe some of the Husaroks later on as well. I got not in this case Husaroks, Arkasoks, the pioneer dudes.
Yes.
Really bloody strong, especially right now with a lot of these Romanian dudes. He's just spamming recruities, and disheartened troops do actually have a point, and these recruities aren't that bad because they do have a machine gun at least. But you need fire support backing them up. Disheartened infantry without anything to make them heartened, like a blocking squad, isn't going to get much done.
And actually, looking at his division makeup, he doesn't have any of those. No blocking, detachments really actually as a part of the division. In the meantime, there's a mountain of smoke as a lot of pioneer, or more accurately, flamethrower troops being pushed through the trees. Of course, these guys are probably not going to take a ton of ground, but that's not why they're here. They're here just to kind of cause a little bit of mayhem, a little bit of madness, and that's more than enough. That's all they need right now.
Actually, I think they're gonna fully capture this ridgeline here, and it's a really strong position if Koenig can control it. Because if he controls that ridgeline, he can stop any more reinforcements getting brought actually into the central town. And then from there, he could probably actually capture the entire town. So that's going to give him a really good baseline of fire support, especially if he can get his machine guns and anti-tank guns, as he's just got a very good natural defensive cover out of all the trees.
This is true. I was wrong, though. One of the flamethrower squads actually forces to surrender what had been a full Romanian infantry squad against him. Probably some of the most point-efficient flamethrower traits I think I've seen in a long time. Usually those guys run in and immediately the Zippo bursts, and that's the end of everything.
Yeah, and we're seeing right now what Edwin's really doing to try to counteract is he's setting up his own support line on the opposite end of the forest. He's got MG34s, he's got Panzer IVs, so he does have decent fire support, but the problem is he doesn't have fire support to really go in. But speaking of going in, there's a goddamn furball going on.
Well, the funny thing is we have, ME210s making gun runs on the ground. And yes, the IARs solid, for what they are, but it seems like the entirety of the Hungarian, it's not the Luftwaffe, but the entirety of the Hungarian Air Force here, just kind of swooping around doing their thing. And, okay, a single Hotchkiss and a Ford over here is not going to be enough to chase him off.
No. Yeah, it's going to be a big problem with Edwin, because he doesn't really have any crazy anti-aircraft units. He has Hotchkisses and then flak 20 mils. You really do need those 37 mils or 40s to actually, properly cover your airspace from enemy air.
True. Now, the infantry has been pushed off here for the most part from the ridgeline. I think because of that, what you called it, that kind of defense of the MG34s backed up by the P4s. But the northern side here, recruitees being shifted right back on in, and, to paraphrase was it Arthur Wellington, I think, at Waterloo, they came in the old-fashioned, and we saw them off the old-fashioned as well.
Yeah. Imagine if Wellington, or really Napoleon, actually just had a couple flamethrower troops.
Well, at that point, Moscow would have been done by his guys instead of the other way around.
Everyone always thinks about sending machine guns, assault rifles back in time. I want to see a Roman legion with flamethrowers.
I'm trying to... Okay, first of all, Siege of Carthage, over an instant. That's...
Yes.
Don't salt the earth, just burn them alive. You know, let the gods sort them out.
Just a bunch of Triarii guys with a goddamn M2 flamethrower on their back, scaling the rules.
Well, of course, I'm trying to think about what the return part of that is. Greek fire never gets invented. But the Recruiti, like I said, so we have 3 squads of Recruiti to the northern side. They're going to go down here pretty quickly. Oh no, the 305 is going to have jumped. So we have one off-map thing, and he doesn't even get a chance to use it. 110 points brought down by this skulking fighter. And forgive me, but not like a stellar fighter either. Like, it's rather underpowered, all things considered.
Yeah, it's cheaper, which is its main real benefit in this case. But really good positioning from it, yeah. It was just kind of good instinct of having it, yeah, because that completely shut down the off-map. And that off-map would have been deadly, because he was going to use it down south to try to push it down. He has, a few forces of tanks here to support that push. That push isn't going to happen anymore, so that's going to give Edwin a bit of breathing room.
Well, the kind of funny thing, too, is you look far south, you see recruit these squads, and this is kind of, in my mind, kind of like Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade, where they send that first random dude. Kind of like, yes, quick, send in that red shirt into the temple to see what happens to him. These poor guys, they get brought on in, and they're cut out in the open, and this is just not going to be good. Poor guys.
We do have the 20 mil half track here, but he is just not in a position to... Well, okay, now he's trying to get himself into a position, but this isn't enough fire support to really be a substantial push. As you see, disheartened troops out in the open, not going to have a good time.
Well, the funny thing is, H39 can come in and just kind of stopgap that, but I think we're going to see the 210s making a gun run. 210s making gun runs in the south. If nothing else, freak out the infantry, which, if I get hit by 20 mils and 13 mils, yeah, I'd definitely be freaking out too.
Yeah. And it goes, to push. And it's still really just going on up north is that ColKoenig is bringing up, that Sykes actually, it's HE ammo, makes sense. But he still has the ridgeline under his control. He only has a 1311, he actually hasn't been ticking on Edwin for the majority of the time. However, this is still fantastic map advantage. It'd be whether he can really push out from this ridgeline position now.
Yes, that's true. I mean, I think the biggest cause of that early on was just, I think Edwin had a very, very good aggressive playstyle in the center, and for the most part, ColKoenig was like, yeah, dude, that's fine. Mm-hmm. Let me seize a flank first, and then let me worry about injections later on. You can see right now, we have Stu 42 being brought on into the center to kind of dislodge, I think, some of that lingering flamethrower troops with 3 more infantry squads in the center line. And while there's a very nice anti-aircraft battery starting to get put up over here on that north central position, I'm waiting for even a single, 87 mil, excuse me, to get brought in over here. And we're waiting for it. It's gonna happen.
Yeah. Got to happen. So back to a 12-12, and yeah, it's actually quite surprising to see the amount of aircraft ColKoenig has invested in. Those, what's it called, 210s, only 60 points, I forgot. So you can very easily spam those guys out, and as you can see, especially when your opponent doesn't have anti-air, you can just strafe everything to hell and back.
Yeah, and that's totally fine too as well. If you think about it, try to look back at the Romanian stuff here. 12 pieces that he technically can bring in, but that's an awful lot of investment that he cannot afford. I mean, 210 making a gun run in the south, and like I said, here it goes. There's between the H39, which is practically a Tiger, at least as far as those guys are concerned, that's all they have to worry about. Cool.
Yeah, it's just good defense.
It's price efficient defense, which is such a different thing for so much. Yeah.
Honestly, for like Koenig, like just having that one card of H39s and Stugs is probably better than having the Panzer IV and then a bunch of Stugs for the Romanians.
Yeah.
Because just having some cheap, you always want some cheap tanks whenever you can take him. Because in positions like this, where it's not, expensive tanks can't be all over the bloody place, just having something with the bare minimum armor and a machine gun and maybe some high explosive shells if you're lucky is good.
But to me, that's where the beauty of all these light vehicles can come in for the Romanians. The Romanians get 18 light vehicles, and they're not shabby either. they're essentially upgun 221s with the
Oh,
20 mil cannons and stuff like that. I'm sorry.
The recon stuff, I forgot to look at that tab.
Because that's the thing. I mean, the Hungarians don't get the same breadth of material that the Romanians do get. So I mean, that you're right. I would say with an asterisk. So
yes, I've seen a push here from Edrin trying to reclaim the southern part, or on the northern parts of the map, the little southern ridgeline. That's using some proper infantry this time, the Venatoris and some assault dudes, and actually making some pretty decent. Well, was making decent progress to a big bundle grenade landed in his troops.
yes, indeed, and we're gonna see right now that they're still gonna be able to push, but the question is to what end? Because right now that doesn't bring them anything. I know maybe he's trying to get some kind of re-link with those other flamethrower troops that are to the south, the MG34 brace, but that's not all that much.
No.
Of course, it still is 12-12 though too. So what do I know?
So it's just slow and steady here. I guess really for Koenig, like as we can see of God Vision, he has a hell of a lot more troops up north than Edrin has. But he hasn't really pushed out much from his original beachhead, which I think is definitely a bit of a misplay from him, because he could have pretty easily at least tried to take the northern flag in a little farmstead, and maybe also take the southern one as well. But he's been very content in just playing it very defensive here, when he should have kept, keeping that momentum and making those pushes.
So he did briefly have it. Okay, the next arrival, geez. I think just about the entire air tab is out. I lie. He doesn't have the actual bombers here. But he's starting to make runs over here on some of the anti-air positions. He's unmasking them and making incredible runs otherwise. I think he's trying to set up for calling in actual bombers.
Maybe, yeah. He's got the Focke-Wulf coming in. We've seen an IAR from Medrin trying to do some air defense, but just an insane investment in aircraft here. And honestly, that strike didn't really do that much. I mean, knocked out some anti-air, which is cool and all, but the ground forces of Edrin are still in a pretty good position to threaten Koenig's ridgeline defense.
I mean, I agree with you. Again, I have another provisional kind of thing behind this, though, too. I mean, yes, it's a crazy investment. It's still an investment that if you don't lose it, I mean, it's still... It forces your opponent to, one, waste time, waste energy, and waste clicks worrying about his stuff in the center. It also worries him about, okay, if I lose the anti-air, I have to bring it back, even though it really isn't that necessary right now. ME-210 up to the northern side. I'm not sure if he got his bombs off. I know it doesn't look like he did. I think that was the failure of the strike in the center. So
yeah, bit of a misclick, yeah. But this is all pretty good here for Edrin, because it is gaining him time. He's got the 13-11 again, and if Koenig isn't going to be aggressive after make it was a good push, but the initial places he took aren't flag places. It's not like pushing in the center of town, which you see quite often on this map, and then gaining both flags in the town. Or actually here, Edrin's managed to make a pretty decent foothold, but he's not going to overextend. He's just going to capture the opposing flag, set up some defenses, and just try to get that slow and steady, little plus run.
Well, Koenig stirs himself. If you look to the northern side, a lot of his troops have very aggressive moves. They're measured aggression, which I like quite a bit, but you can see right now that northern flag is going to go to him, and I would suspect that we're going to see a fortification of that town, and then maybe have him swing around the trees. Because one thing we actually haven't talked a huge amount about, yes, if you're on the next slope back up, you have a nice line of sight down into it, but the closer you get to the front lines, the harder it is to actually get around that forest, just where that kind of TA is.
Mm-hmm.
So... And it's 12-12 because more infantry has been brought down to the south. Pioneer are matching up against those Lovich, and the P4 is definitely announcing his presence. But I don't know, I feel like this is going to start being a 13-11. Yep, there we go.
Yep. Because he does manage to capture that northern flag. And then both sides are playing balance. They do have pretty deep decks. So if the game goes long, it's really not going to be a big deal for either side. So just slow and steady plus runs is really all you need. You're not playing Maverick here.
the H-39 making a run, making an end run. And I kind of wonder, so that Venatori Moto's got to know. Oh no. I almost wanted this H-39 to be able to engage that Stoke, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Nope.
Stoke is more encouraged to go after the infantry instead.
It's the slope protecting him.
True. True, but the Stug is he knows the H-39 is there, but the H-39 I think should be able to penetrate from that. Maybe
he should be able to. It's gonna be tough, but there's a possibility. The Stug's gonna see him first, and
oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bully. And the Stug actually goes down over here for Colonel Koenig as well. The 20 mils made a nice little run around and picked it off. So that's actually a big loss over here in the meantime.
No, it's a fantastic little positive from Edwin of the 20 mils and also moving the Stug as well. He's realized Koenig has invested quite a lot in this northern person. You know, using the Stug from the right and the Stug down south is putting pretty good fire, because right now, this rest of the pursuit from Koenig, it's just infantry. Infantry out in the open, which is not an ideal position for infantry to be in, I do have to say.
That's true. That's very, very true. And I think that's why you're seeing, first of all, actually, at long last, artillery being put onto the field over here for Koenig, and actually a lot of anti-tank killer squads being moved in. Unfortunately, they're radically out of position for the time being.
They are. Now, I think Koenig is definitely going to halt offensive operations up north for a little bit. Yeah, he has managed to at least gain an objective of the farmstead, and he has that pretty well defended. Being is bringing an anti-tank gun or two to cover it, maybe a Stug. He should be able to hold it pretty easily, because a lot of Edwin's forces is still just the huge Venatori MG-34 blob more in the central position of that northern salient.
That's true. Looking down south, just kind of checking in over here, a couple of Venatori motos being brought on into the town. But we're seeing this kind of, quibbling, I'm going to call it, for that flag right to the west of the center kind of intersection. It's shifting one side, shifting to the other. It's just kind of like, okay, so, we watch one squad after another get turned into dog meat, so what next? So, and
it's all over the flags.
Very much so. We're seeing a committed attack to the northern side. By the same token, we're also seeing a committed recon play, which is kind of a hard phrase to really parse. But we are going to see that this town, potentially, the northernmost flag, potentially could go back to Edwin.
They're seeing a huge Venatori push here. But you also saw the machine gun and fire support from the Venatoris down south and the Stugs, and this is a problem. Koenig doesn't have any long-range anti-tank left right now to deal with just a few Stugs here. So finally, Edwin has managed to bring in superior fire support.
But now the bombers are starting to make their runs. We have a Focke-Wulf coming on in as well. And I think the anti-air net's going to go down here. Shockingly enough, the funny thing is that you almost want the spread if you're making ground runs on that anti-aircraft net, because it's just spaced apart just enough that an increased spread is going to allow you just as much damage as if you hit what you were aiming for.
Mm-hmm. And even though he did do a good job there, Koenig knocking out a lot of anti-air, honestly, time and rise, it's really not that bad for Edwin, because those are bombs not landing on his frontline troops, which are, seizing the flag up north, and as well as contesting with a lot of the Germans. So if he can just keep, say, quote-unquote, like, distracting, the bomber force, just knock out his bloody Hotchkisses, rather than trying to knock out his frontline pushes, that's kind of a win there for Edwin.
Kind of amusingly, if you look down south, there's actually a supply truck that basically all he's doing is throwing mortar rounds one direction and AAA rounds the other direction. So, and there's an 87 mil that's just kind of chilling here. So we have one of those English kind of artillery pieces that's just not being utilized whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't want to say that Edwin's won it, because I feel like a bad engagement to the northern side could still split things very, very negatively for him. But he's stymied quite a bit. He has really delayed any kind of Hungarian breakout, which, like I said in the first part, considering how good that Hungarian infantry is, that's hard.
Yeah, it's going to be curious to see how he does, if he does actually try to push from this point out. Because Koenig still has a good defensive line along the hill. As you see, a lot of his troops are actually on the lower ridge of the hill, mainly just, better cover, and you can pop them up if you need some do shooting. And at close range, infantry as they go over, they're gonna have a bunch of angry Hungarians shooting at them. But
Exactly.
neither side is really at a decisive, break point yet, where they can break on through, capture a bunch of flags, and win. Which you've seen like a Vanguard Maverick. It's more just very, very attritional warfare right now. Just little gains here, little gains there, such as the gain up north here for Edwin.
And for some reason, actually, the artillery piece is now firing to the south for ColKoenig. So, I mean, sure. I just feel like if you're going to reduce something, maybe hit the same theater you were starting in the first place. But, I would say hindsight, but he's so far in the hind, it's kind of hard to know what he's looking at, so...
Yeah, it's pretty much just a desperate artillery strikes there to try to stop Edrin's push, because this is really coming down to a battle of flags. Fortunately for Koenig right now, he doesn't need that one flag in the town to get at 1311. He still ideally want to get it under control, and he's going to be bringing up some more infantry, as well as another 25-pounder to help deal with that push.
You know what I didn't appreciate is actually the anti-aircraft net now is being cleaned up a little bit by this infantry that's been sitting on that reverse slope for so long.
Oh, that's great. That's actually a really good push here from Koenig, because this entire sector is actually completely unguarded, and just one stug here, there's some enemy stugs coming in to contest, can do a lot of damage, and that will free up his bombers next time to hopefully bomb more important targets.
And while those enemy Stugs, the Romanian Stugs, are pounding on the Hungarian infantry, doesn't matter that much. Okay, you want to be aggressive? Come on in. I'll be happy to show you what you are willing to receive here. And like you said, on almost... yeah, they are. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We actually might see the entire Hungarian... I don't think they've lost that much. But I think we're seeing almost the entire divisional assets here, which is amazing.
Yeah. And let's see, okay. Gets run on some infantry.
There goes the Hotchkiss, I guarantee. Yep, that's a twofer. That's another one.
One on the Stug.
I mean,
so a pretty spread out bomb load, but didn't really do all of that much, all things considering. I mean, Edrin's push is still going in strong.
But yeah, we continue to say that doesn't do that much, but I feel like it's almost like a death at 1,000 cuts. We have these 210s that are still making these wild, cannon round runs, taking a little bit at a time, And if you go the other direction, the Romanians have not used the HE-111s. Those are basically dead cards right now. The Hungarians have used their entire air force consistently now.
Yeah, honestly, at this point for Edrin, it's really just not much of a point even buying any more anti-air. The air war's is lost for him.
Yes.
Like, he's brought all this anti-air. He hasn't really shot down, I believe, a single aircraft. Maybe one?
I think maybe one. Well, not counting the artillery observer.
Yeah. He cannot possibly win the air war anymore, so there's no point even trying to engage in that theater. He just needs to push hard. You just have to accept the casualties of the Focke-Wulfs and just try to get some of these ground games, which is what he's trying to do right now.
He is, but I think he's waited until, like you said, he's gone and invested so much in here. If you want to start counting just the amount of, Hotchkisses that have no rounds or dead anti-aircraft pieces and things like that, he still has a decent net in the south, but it's cost him so much in supplies to do so. And the town push that he had, well, one by one they're getting picked up because he's not been able to be aggressive over there. The northern side
he has not.
MG-34 batteries, guys trooping on forwards. Yes, it's scary. At the same time, that's one artillery strike away from really getting cleaned up, or heck, one bombing run or one strafing run. So.
Yeah, we're seeing actually a lot of these 100 mils actually doing quite a decent amount of work, especially in the counter battery role here. And if my math is correct, 100 millimeters is larger than 87, so a little bit more effective in that role.
True, but do they have smoke rounds?
Oh god, yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's just the smallest thing possible, but at the same time, I feel like there's still a little bit of utility over here from the captured English material.
Mm-hmm.
Which 87, I want to say that's a 25-pounder.
25-pounder.
Yeah, I'm not used to seeing the diameter of said shells. I'm used to seeing the poundage. Give me that Imperial, please.
Yes, it's a really odd caliber.
Cannot say I understand it, but if it worked for them, sort of, then it worked for them. And even then, he's trying to go and engage it in return. So he's got this the southern 25-pounder aiming to the northern side, and it's I guess for me it's because we don't see the 25-pounder on this division. You don't. You see maybe the 149s because you get decent veterancy and decent availability with them, but you don't see the 25-pounders very often for the Hungarians.
Yep, and we're going to see them much longer as they are getting batteried quite a bit. But at the end of the day, Koenig is actually still holding on to his position pretty well, because he can fall back to the ridgeline, and just having a good control over the ridgeline here allows him to be quite deadly at CQC, and it makes it for a very costly push for Edwin to really push any further. And we're seeing a counterattack already here from Koenig with his Stag and Marder, and he does actually get the kill.
There's still 2 Stugs there, but at the same time, losing that flag makes it kind of a near-death experience, I would argue, for Edwin, because that now... Well, we have the blanket of anti-air being brought back up again, but okay. I have a ton of ground firepower. You bring in your light infantry, that's fun, great, cool. Not going to be enough, I don't think.
No. Unless you can get the Stugs closer, but once again, Koenig can just call in the Hungarian Air Force, and he should be able to get some good...
I'm sorry, HE-111.
Oh!
Hits the wrong thing, but there we go. There we go. I'm sorry.
No.
So the ground infantry over here trying to hold the line, and they'll do so for this time, I'm sure, but the Stug goes down. There's another linchpin dead. They have the 40mm over here that's going to die, but he's going to go and put some more firepower into the flank of this infantry that's caught out in the open. Yeah, the Stug over here that's going to continue to just pound and pound and pound at all this infantry that can do nothing to them.
Yeah, so. And the infantry's just very pinned.
Yes. Yes, without a doubt. Yeah, and Edwin does the correct thing. There's a tap. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm.
No, he does tap out. The row, like 1200 KD difference. It didn't feel it.
It felt
tighter. It didn't feel it was that bad.
It felt a lot tighter. Now, seeing over here, the Hungarian Air Force doesn't take a single casualty. One of the oppressed crew over here takes 4 kills. Other than that, not a whole lot. And while we may not get a ton of kills from the Air Force themselves, we do have Sandor over here, Master Little Mr. Hound, taking out 3 ground anti-air positions as well as a Stug. We have Peter over here taking out quite a few units, but it's weird to think that the Hungarian Air Force is the thing that won it.
Yeah, it was very odd maps in particular, especially at opener, because you don't see people going for the Northern Rush, but Koenig managed to completely catch Edwin off guard, and he could have been a bit more aggressive and a bit more maneuverable after the initial breakthrough to, really consolidate some gains.
Yes.
But he managed to still trade very effectively, and I think especially the air game definitely got him the dub, not just so much of, blowing stuff up, but it must have really sucked for Edwin. Oh, hey, I got all this anti-air, my 25 and 20 mils. And, oh, here's a dozen aircraft coming my way. And I can't shoot a single one down.
Mm-hmm.
That's just frustrating.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's one of those things that it feels like... It feels like he was making a resurgent push with all his 100s doing so well and all that material, and then you have it happen like it did.
Mm-hmm.
But, well done to the Hungarian Air Force. I don't think we will ever see their numbers come like that ever again.
They mustered everything for one final battle.
Having a Romanian guy being like, then we will fight in the shade, or something Hungarian Air Force comes in. In any case, any final thoughts there, sir?
No.
Well, folks, in that case, then, until Thursday, we actually have another wonderful replay coming to you from the monthly tourney. Until that time, I'm Conal Work.
I'm Rangaroo. Take it easy.